What's up, everybody? This is Will from Low Rated Duelist bringing you my low rated Blue Eyes White Dragon deck profile. As you guys probably well know by now, Blue Eyes, I'm big on Legacy monsters, and by far, Blue Eyes White Dragon is by far my favorite monster ever and will always be. And so when I heard that they announced Legacy support for him, I was totally on board. And when the Legacy support was actually very good, I was like, heck yes. Finally we have a Legacy monster being considered meta, and what better monster than Blue Eyes White Dragon? That was a very, very fun time. Unfortunately, that time in the meta was very brief. It kind of came onto the spot where Cosmo was hit, Monarchs were hit. Well, Monarchs were still a little bit at full power, but Monarchs got hit, and then Pepe got hit to where like it wasn't a great deck, and it has so many flaws, but it was the best at the time. And then Zodiacs came out, and then Paleo came out, and then Metal Foe came out, and then ABC, and they pretty much took over the meta game to where Blue Eyes is kind of irrelevant now. But that's not to say that it's not a good deck. It's still a pretty decent deck. Um, and it's by far my favorite. Like, I don't necessarily play the meta. It just happened to be meta. So like I was playing the meta for a brief point at a time, and it was pretty cool to actually have a competitive deck for once. But let's go ahead and get into the deck profile, and yeah. So Blue Eyes White Dragon, it's basically win condition is to pretty much if you want to go, ideally go first, and you basically want to make a board that your opponent can't overcome. And that's because Blue Eyes White Dragon, it's pretty fast, and on top of that, it's basically makes boards with legs. In other words, it doesn't really run back row, but because all of its monsters has all its offense and defense for it. If on your first turn, if you want to bring out, you basically want to go out into your extra deck monsters. Ideally, you want to bring out Blue Eye Spirit Dragon on your first turn, if anything. The card is by far the best extra deck monster in your extra deck. It stops Mass Pendulum summons. It negates a graveyard effect. It has a 3K booty. And on top of that, during either player's tag in turn, it can tag out into another Light Synchro Dragon type monster. So you can tag out into Azure. Azure is going to protect all your dragons and make them untargetable until. And if you do it during your opponent's turn, the protection stays during your turn. And you can also tag out into Black Rose Moonlight monster to bounce a monster. I can't tell you how many Utopia the Lightnings I've bounced, and ABC Dragon Busters that I've bounced with Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. So by far, Blue Eye Spirit Dragon is the first turn option that you want to go into first, ideally. Blue Eye Spirit, this deck is basically tailor-made to make him, because I run a bunch of tuners. This deck is tailor-made to make him about 80% of the time. Through testing, I found that 80% of the time, you're going to be able to make a Blue Eye Spirit. About 30% of the time, you're going to make a Blue Eye Spirit and a Cyber Dragon Infinity to back him up, which is pretty darn good. I mean, because Infinity by himself, if you make it on your first turn, I mean, he was good at one point, but now against like a hand of 6 cards, no. Same with number 38. A good card, but like a hand of 6 cards, I don't trust the number 38 on the field by itself. So ideally, you want to go into Blue Eye Spirit first turn. About 90% of the time, this deck is able to make either a Blue Eye Spirit, either Infinity, or a Rank 8. And about 10% of the time, this deck does Brick. Now, when I say Brick, it means that you're going to be able to summon like an alternative or a Blue Eyes with no backup, or you're going to be able to set a stone, or you're not going to be able to set anything or summon anything. It does happen, unfortunately. So let's go into the ratios and explanations. 3 Blue Eyes, 3 alternative. Amazing monster special summons itself by revealing a Blue Eyes White Dragon. Really critical for going into your Xyz and Synchro plays. 2 Dragon Spirit of White. I like to run 2 of these guys. You're running Desires, and he's your primary method of back row removal. You got to have Dragon Spirit of White too. 3 Galaxy Soldier, amazing card. For one, it can pitch Dragon type monsters that you don't want in your hand into the graveyard, and it's enabled to summon Cyber Dragon Infinity, which, like I said, is not a daunting monster as it used to be in the past. But I mean, it's still a card that has to be dealt with, especially if you have it backed up by a Blue Eye Spirit. I mean, most decks and most things, if you summon this on your first turn, they have to at least use probably 2 cards to get over Infinity. So they're taking a neg while you get to sit on this Infinity, and on top of that, if it's backed up by a Blue Eye Spirit, it's a pretty good situation to be in. And like I said, Blue Eye Spirit plus Infinity on your first turn is pretty common in this deck. It happens pretty commonly. 2 Max C. Originally, I wasn't main decking Max C, but I realized that it's just too good. It's having I mean, like I said, you do want to go first with this deck. I mean, that's Blue Eyes' win condition. It does have a good grind game. However, it's also able to just summon a mass first turn board that's very hard to overcome. That's almost how you win. But Maxi is just too good of a card to leave out of the main deck, regardless if it doesn't help your first turn board or not. Usually, if I brick, it wasn't because of Maxi. I'll just say that. And on top of that, it just extends your plays because this deck does have a lot of inherent draw power. So you draw into Maxi on top of just summoning a Blue Eye Spirit. So it just puts so much pressure on your opponent. Three Ancient Stone, or White Stone of Ancients, three White Stone of Legend. I like three for this build. You're running two cards of Consonance, and you're running three Galaxy Soldier. So, because summoning Infinity can sometimes be costly. Um, but if you pitch White Stone of Legend with your Galaxy Soldiers, you get at least probably stay card neutral in summoning Blue Eyes White, or I'm sorry, Cyber Dragon Infinity, or you at least neg one at the most. Sage is by far the best tuner in the deck by far. When it's normal summon, you get to add any tuner monster from your deck to your hand, so you can add any of these three. So if you open Sage, an alternative, and Galaxy Soldier, you can normal summon Sage, add White Stone of Legend, pitch it with Galaxy Soldier, and then on your first turn, you're going to have a Blue Eye Spirit and Cyber Dragon Infinity. Three Return of the Dragon Lords, two Pot of Desires. I only like two Pot of Desires. I don't think three is a good idea. Realistically, I think most people have come to the consensus that you only want to activate one Desires per duel. And if you run three, you run the risk of one being left in your deck after you activate one. And you don't want that. You want to banish the other one, preferably. Another great thing about Pot of Desires that most people, I think, don't necessarily take into account is that sometimes it does screw you over, but sometimes it helps you by banishing dead cards of Consonance, dead Melody of Awakening Dragons, and dead Dragon Shrines from your deck, which is great. So, I mean, like I said, the card comes with some risk and it comes with some benefits, and I think the benefits far outweigh the risks. Because very rarely do I banish all my combo pieces. Three trade-in for your draw power, two cards of Consonance. I was running this at three at one point, but I realized it was not a good idea. You just want to run two because you don't always want to activate it because sometimes you can't synchro if you do. But two is a good ratio, and you're running so many tuners that you're probably going to draw into another one to where two is really good. I think two is good for draw power. Two Dragon Shrine, really good. Basically, it lets you Foolish Burial two dragon types because if you send a normal type monster, which Blue Eyes and Dragon Spirit White are in the graveyard, you can send one more. So you can send one and then combo a stone to where I get a Blue Eyes to your hand and stuff like that. And then you can combo it with your revival cards. Three Melody of Awakening Dragon. This enables you to search out your Blue Eyes and your alternative. Soul Charge, amazing in this deck. If you're making a Blue Eyes deck, I would highly recommend you run Soul Charge. Soul Charge enables you to make amazing boards with this deck. Like on your first turn, you can make Crystal Wing, Cyber Dragon Infinity, Blue Eye Spirit, number 38, and a dragon. Like it's just amazing that the type of boards you can make with Soul Charge. One Upstart and then one Silver's Cry. Very underrated card. For one, it can help you get into a Blue Eye Spirit play. But on top of that, you can set it if this guy's in your graveyard, and during your opponent's turn, if they play a scale, or if they set back row, you can flip it and then summon this guy, and it's basically a Cosmic Cyclone at that point. As far as Ecto deck options, two Azure, I like two. I don't think one is enough. I don't like the Stardust Spark play. A lot of people, I think, run Stardust Spark as one of the options. Yes, you can use it to overlay, but a lot of the time, I think that it's just going to die. Like, in other words, I think it's basically supposed to protect a card that's going to die anyway. So I don't like the Stardust Spark option. Three Blue Eye Spirit. Three is probably too much, but there are plenty of duels where I've needed three, especially since I run two Azure. And it's just too good of a card. I like three. One Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Two Black Rose Moonlight. I do not run Michael, primarily because there have been too many times where I've needed to tag out twice in a duel. Especially with Buster Dragon, because this card is the MVP against ABC, because if they summon Buster Dragon, you basically tag out into Boonlight, cast it back into the extra deck, and then Buster Dragon cannot tag out during the opponent's turn. So you basically deal with the Buster Dragon. And on top of that, Utopia the Lightning is basically the most generic broken rank 4 Xyz, or rank 5, I guess, since it's a 5, and so many times where as soon as they enter battle phase, you can tag out into Moonlight, cast it back in the extra deck, because you're going to lose a monster anyway. So one Dark Matter, one Full Armor, once the new There is a new Galaxy Eye Cypher card coming out in the next set that can pop face downs. Then I'll probably add him for more background removal. And in place of full armor, one Cypher, one number 38, one Divine Dragonite Felgrand, one Cyber Dragon Infinity, and one Nova. So that is my deck profile, guys. Enjoy the replays and let me know comments and suggestions on how I can improve it and what do you think. Thanks.